Good evening, COM 204. The topic that I'll be talking to you about tonight is fish farms. But first, let me give you some background on that. So we'll start off with saying that, in the modern world today, we as humans face a multitude of great crises globally. Biohazardous problems, we face weather problems, but one in specific, we face hunger issues, and in very specific language with that, we face an issue of a shortage of fish globally, edible fish. Now, the reason for this is because as technology expands outwards in all directions so quickly, we have surpassed the ocean's ability, as well as streams and lakes, to produce fish to meet our demands. Now, the problem here is that, imagine, if you will, a country like this, which is for the most part agriculturally grown. We don't rely specifically on our oceans and lakes for our food sources. Imagine if our farms were to collapse, if our crops were all to die, and if our cows and whatnot were to just die off. This would be a major issue. Now, imagine coastal countries which rely on aquaculture, or rather the growth of sea life and whatnot in their particular situations. They would begin to have starvation and whatnot. Well, the major claim that I want to make about this is that fish farms will ultimately alleviate shortages of edible fish worldwide. Now, first, I want to define fish farming. Now, fish farms are artificial enclosures on or off land in which fish are raised to be eaten. They generally raise commonly edible fish for that purpose. And I want to give you 3 other claims which will support that. The first one I'd like to present is that many nations rely on farm fish to meet the people's demand for fish, as well as stimulate their economy. I know that the second one that I'd like to present to you is that fish farms can be developed in order to accommodate for a number of scenarios. And the final point that I'd like to argue here is that the rate at which technology currently evolves is so frighteningly fast that the continual development of fish farms will keep it one step ahead of any fish crisis which can occur. Back to my first point, many nations rely on fish farms to meet their people's demand for fish, as well as stimulate their economy. And this trend has been viewed by Ken Steer, who is a researcher for Time magazine. And according to his research, roughly 40% of the fish that we as Americans eat come from farms. This is actually a rather large portion of it. Also, Ken Steer goes on to state that aquaculture, as I defined earlier, has expanded into a $78 billion industry worldwide, growing 9% every year since the year 1975, making it the fastest growing trade outlet for all who supply their population's demand for fish. On to my second point, fish farms can be developed in order to accommodate for a number of scenarios. And in this, I mean, one scenario which is currently occurring is the population has been ballooning for the past 30 years. According to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, they calculate by the year 2030, we will need 40 additional tons of seafood to feed an inflated population. Rather than go through the starvation, as fish farms will develop to accommodate to this issue, they can be made easy enough to provide opportunities for those living in bitter poverty in coastal countries a chance to provide for their families and actively form their own environment. The third and final point which I want to make is the rate at which technology currently evolves is so frighteningly fast that the continual development of fish farm technology should be able to remain one step ahead of any approaching fish crisis. And I have to back this up with this. According to data found by an organization called the Environmental Defense Fund, 3 decades ago, fish farming was very costly, but recent innovations to the methods have made fish farming cheap enough to become a common profession. With fish farm success growing at a rate of 9% every year, no global fish crisis will ever be able to create conditions in which fish farming is obsolete. And I'd like to leave you to think about this point. I'm going to actually use a very common term a lot of people use, very common metaphor. If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. If you teach a man to farm fish, you feed him, his society, or rather his community, his family, and his wallet for a lifetime. Thank you very much.
All right, the structural stuff is all very sound. The evidence, it's a little thin. It's good evidence what you have. I do think that you're relying on only one or two pieces of information on each of the secondary points. You did a good job explaining the context and the reason that we should be dealing with this. I do think you could use some data on the lack of the oceans being able to provide the fish. I think that there's that crisis management information that's missing there. It's largely assumed. I thought you did a nice job speaking to the audience, despite the fact that we've got a half dozen people in here texting and doing a variety of other things while you're speaking. Damn their eyes. All right. Nan, you've got no outline, right? You have the one you're going to use to speak from. Who still needs an outline to do their response speech on? All right, right over there. It's, I must say it's not Brian. Is it Brian? Brian, okay. After you're done, he gets your outline. All right. And then you send me one later or bring one later. Okay.